Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we've got an interesting show today. You've got a couple of interesting guests.
I do, Mom. You are going to be one of them. So I am going to interview my mom, Gloria Horsley, today, Dr. Gloria Horsley, and her fiancé. I like saying the word fiancé.
I like it too.
Her fiancé, Dr. Frank Powers. And we are going to be talking today about the myths and fears of dating after loss. I like that name. And this is very relevant, Mom, because you know Dad died almost 2 years ago, and you have been dating, and now you are engaged.
Right.
So we're going to talk a lot about that journey and tips and tools for people out there that are lonely and looking to date themselves after loss. Dr. Frank Powers is a licensed psychologist. He also graduated with a master's degree in social work from Columbia, as did I, so we have both of those things in common. Yes. He lost his dad when he was only 15 years old, and he became single after divorce. He and my mother are writing the book Open to Love, Fearless Dating After 60. So welcome to the show, Frank and Gloria.
Thank you, Heidi. It's great to be on the show and kind of be a guest as well as a co-host.
So talk to us first a little bit about how you two met.
Well, I'll start since the beginning. I was, dating a bit after your dad died, and I just found it was so different than it was when I was in my 20s. You know, being a senior, dating was an incredible experience. And I just started talking to my women friends about it, and they were so interested, and you know, some of them were married and some of them had never dated, and I was telling them some of the things that I found out when I dated, because I've been a therapist for 40 years and in family therapy, and some of the big surprises, and learning about my fears and myths and hearing theirs. I thought, wow, you know, I had to write a book about this. People are so interested, because I'm a kind of person who kind of likes to organize what I'm thinking, doing a little bit of writing. And so I decided, well, if I'm going to do a chapter on dating as a senior, dating over 60, that I would have to do something online, because I saw my grandkids were all dating online. So I went in and joined a dating app and sent it out. I did it all by myself. I didn't even talk to anybody about it. I just went on and filled out the information.
She is fearless.
She is, and I've never even seen her dating app, so I don't even know what it says.
So I went on a dating app, and I had several people who sent me, you know, requests to have coffee or something. And the second one was Frank. And it was fabulous, and he's the love of my life, and I have to say it's been great, and I really wanted to share everything I've learned. When I met Frank, he can talk about it, but I did tell him I was doing research for a book. And then when I got to know him, I said, you've been a therapist for all these years also, and you come from a little different perspective than I do, male being too, which is wonderful.
And from divorce, not from loss of spouse.
Right. And so we came from different perspectives, and it's just been wonderful, not only for what I feel like we're offering the world, because I really wanted people to know, because people are lonely. I was lonely.
Yeah. I mean, that's what motivated me after the divorce. But of course, I had been online a lot longer than your mother had. And so I was kind of surprised at her fearlessness when we first started texting, because usually online you begin to start texting first before you actually meet the person, and you try to decide whether you have enough in common or whether there's something of interest that you might want to meet them in person. Because usually, and I think this is pretty statistically accurate, that probably out of every 30 people that you would meet online, there's only about 3 or 4 that would be appropriate in terms of a future dating process. And even then, you may not find the one in those 3 or 4. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. So I was really surprised when I saw your mom's profile. I said, wow, this lady's a powerhouse. This is really wonderful. You don't often see people with her background. And then she told me she was writing a book, and then that oh, she's not really serious about this.
That was
And
after I met you.
That's right. That's right. So it was really interesting because when I first sent her an invitation to text back and forth and get to know one another, she was in Hawaii, so she wasn't available. So then I asked her whether she wanted to go for coffee or to happy hour. Now, my experience with it was that women were a little bit hesitant in going to happy hour. They were much more comfortable going for coffee in the afternoon if
That
you're going to
makes
meet. Wow, your mother really said, no, happy hour. So that really gave her a lot of status in my mind, because it says, oh, wow, she's really confident.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that many women
That
are
we might recommend
confident.
that even.
Yes.
So, yeah, my fears, the myths and fears, my fear right now, and I'm going to have to say it,
Right.
is that you will think I don't love you because I was married for 60 years, or people watching this will think, how can you have another person, or my family, or friends?
there's a lot of judgment.
Yeah,
A lot of judgment.
just so much judgment, and a lot of it comes from inside.
Well, of course.
I'm thinking,
yeah,
we
think the worst.
Like-
And I remember, I don't remember, it was some mayor's wife made a comment once that I read. She said, I have known two wonderful men in my life. I've been married to two separate wonderful men in my life. And so I think of that when I think of her, that how I admired it. So I'm
Yes.
like,
Right,
you don't need to
right.
be afraid of that.
Right.
And that you're not dishonoring the person, especially if you've had a spouse for 60 years. I was really impressed when I found out that she was 60 years, because the longest that I was married was 25, so it was quite different.
But that's also quite a long ride. 25, right?
Well, yes, it is, but 60 is a little bit longer.
Yeah, it is.
And so I was really impressed when she told me both that she wanted to go to happy hour and that she had been married for 60 years.
When did she
And
tell you that she'd been married for 60 years?
it was in a text.
Okay.
We were
Before
texting
you
back
met?
and forth. Yeah, we didn't actually talk on the phone. It was
No.
all texting.
Okay.
And we set up the meeting at happy hour, and it was she violated almost every possible rule that I was aware of because of my
So you'd
experience.
never seen each other. You'd only texted and then you met.
And then we met.
Wow.
Well, we did, though, check one another out. And in the
Yes.
book, we talk about how can you do this fearlessly, how can you do it safely.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I think that is the contribution that we're trying to make for people to make it is make them more comfortable with the idea that you can be safe. You don't have to worry about online dating. Yes, there are ways that you should do it. Like one of the things that happened was I sent her a copy of my website, and she sent me a copy of her website. And so we knew that we were legitimate. And
I saw
that's a
his
very-
art, which was wonderful, your sculpture.
Exactly. So it was really important that we went through this process and we were reassured. And that's one of the things that we talk about in the book, is how can you be comfortable that the person on the other end of the text is really who they say they
Well-
are.
And we get into that further in
That's
the
a
book.
fear
But
that
yeah,
people
yeah. Who are they? Who are they really going to be? And then that
Well,
kind
Mom,
of.
let me stop you for a minute, because I told you earlier today, we as kids, your daughters, adult children, were concerned because we didn't know who this man was.
Exactly.
And so,
exactly.
my husband used to be a criminal court attorney. We did a deep dive into Frank's life.
And that's smart.
We
That-
probably know
that's
more about
exactly
Frank
what
than
we
he knows about
suggest.
himself. Okay, he came out squeaky clean. I must say, but we were uncovering every single stone.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yes.
We were like, we want to keep my
absolutely.
mom safe. I don't know who this man is. What if he's a scam artist? What if he's, you see these movies out there.
That's part of the fear that we deal with it in the book, because people do have legitimate fears and concerns about how can I do this safely?
Right.
How can I reach out to someone that I don't know, and how can I start this without feeling a fool or feeling I'm going to be scammed or that I'm going to be used in some terrible way.
I love that you address all this.
Yes, we do.
So you've got some things in here about the myths and fears of dating after loss, and one is all the good people are taken.
Yes.
Yeah, well, of course, that's what I thought. My granddaughter said to me when I was thinking about dating, and she said, "Are you sure you don't want to play the field, Grandma?" And I'm like,
Field?
Field? There is no field.
And here your granddaughter's in her 20s saying, "Do you want to play the
Yeah,
field,
they
Grandma?"
have a field.
They're
They're
playing the
60 is less of a field.
Yeah. But with senior dating, I figured because, there are going to be 80% of women are going to be bereaved at some time, and
Right.
eventually, what is the statistic? There'll be 160 women to every 100 men.
Wow.
Yes,
So,
the numbers definitely
It's a
favor
gold mine for a man.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, men are just as frightened about getting back into the dating as women are, because I've worked with them in my practice, and I also know how I felt. I felt like, really? You're such a failure. You got a divorce. You think you can get back in and do something. I had to build a lot of confidence back up.
Yeah.
And I've certainly helped men in my practice do that when they were feeling, well, no, there's no one out there. All the good women are taken. There's no one really gonna. Who would want me? I'm a failure, either in divorce or some.
Well,
other way.
men also have another little factor. They like younger women.
Yeah, they tend to as a group, and Gloria and I have talked about this. She said, well, why do guys do that? What is this whole process? Why do guys pick younger women? And I've told her that certainly from what's written about this subject, and also from my own experience, is that men tend to want to have a younger woman so they can impress the other men.
Yes, that doesn't
And
surprise
make
me.
them feel like they haven't lost a step, and
Wow.
they're still as vital as they were in their 30s. And of course we're not, but we like to pretend we are. So we get into midlife crisis, and that's what happens with men. And the reason why they're drawn to having a younger woman, because it makes them feel younger, that they haven't lost a step.
And what's amazing is you're younger than I am.
I love that
And
too.
she has more step than I do.
I love that too, Mom, that Frank is younger than you. That is wonderful. I
Yes.
love it. Okay, so one of the other things you say is that dating will be upsetting for my family and friends, and we've talked about that. It was definitely...
I think we could talk about that a little bit more, upsetting for family and
Yeah,
friends.
it is.
It is a little bit different with senior dating because you don't have kids at home to upset, and sometimes you just have to upset your family.
Right.
Because it's not going to impact their
You can't please everybody.
8th grade math test.
And there's going to be some people that are going to be more worried about you than others. And so some members of your family may have a bigger objection, and you can't let them run your life. If you do, then in a sense you have to accept loneliness and isolation. And
That's right.
not
I
a
like
good
that you're saying that,
alternative.
Frank, because my sisters and I were adults with our own children. We were like, Mom, I don't understand. Why can't you just stay as a widow and live by yourself? Why do you have to date? I don't get it. Why do you have to fall in love with somebody? And you were great because you were like, this is my life and I deserve to be happy. And I liked living with my husband for 60 years.
Yes.
I enjoyed being with him and I enjoy being with Frank. Why should I have to live alone?
Well, I have to tell
know?
you that my grandson was, his mom, your sister, said to him, why does Grandma have to be with somebody? Why does she want to do that? And we were kind of thinking about getting married at one time, and we'll discuss that sometime.
That's it.
But that's on the back burner a bit. But
Because it really is an option at this point in your life. That is something different at 60 than at 30.
Yeah.
Usually if you're going to have children and you're going to do other things, marriage is really
you really
pretty
need to do it
important.
to protect the family.
At 60, it's a totally
In the
different...
60s,
70 and
70s, and 80s,
Yeah, that's
you
right.
can think,
move up.
okay, do we want to get married? I mean, I love the word fiancé.
Yeah.
You have you've got your matching rings.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute.
You know,
Exactly.
so, and we're in 2022, so you're like, okay, we can get married. or we can't. We don't have to. It's
We
another.
don't
It's freeing.
have to.
It's an
It's so
option.
freeing. It really is. And so we even got a prenuptial. So it worked out.
We were thinking about getting married.
And then we said, you know what? It's really not necessary.
Should we tell them why we decided
I
not
think
to
you
get
ought
married?
to. I think you ought to.
Well, we just decided I have these ideas about what marriage is.
60 years worth.
60 years. And
That's a lot of ideas.
yeah. And I just decided, we had an experience where Frank, we went to a party and Frank left a little earlier than I thought he should. And I went back to my house and Frank said, "Are you mad at me?" Because I left because I was tired. I didn't want to stay at the party. And I am like thinking, if I'd been married to him, I'd probably run up and strangled him.
Thank God.
If you were my husband, I'd be married. But since you're my fiance, I'm
That's
not.
right.
I'm
Since
not
you're my
mad.
fiance, you can do whatever.
Yes.
No,
A lot of permission.
No, we are learning to, what each other needs, how to console each other, and that kind of thing.
yeah.
It's a growing experience. But I realized at that point, honestly, that I had too many ideas about how marriage should be, and I honestly don't
Didn't
think
want those to get in the
baggage.
way.
I think I was
That's right.
not ready for that.
Right.
I
Well-
mean, I just, why
And
lock
a lot
into
of those
the old
ideas
model?
are unconscious. They're not necessarily something
Yeah.
that you think about all the time, but you find out that, oh my gosh, I have some set ideas about what you are when you're married and what you are if you're just living with one another and you're enjoying the relationship.
Well, Frank, I've got to say, I texted a bunch of my friends when you all moved in together, and I said, "Fun fact: my 82-year-old mother is living in sin with her fiance for the first time in her life." And they loved it. They said, "Go." They all said, "Go glow."
Yes, right.
It's so funny because I went over to this party and this woman said, I said, well, we were thinking about getting married, but I think we decided, a friend, because I told people we were going to get married
Right.
and because we got this ring and all that. And the friend's like, "Oh, you're just going to shack up then?" And I said to Frank, at our age, that's why you get married, because that's how people think of it.
Well, and I think you were
right.
a little worried about, okay, if I don't get married, what about the grandkids? And I'm like,
Exactly.
the grandkids are doing their own thing. This is 2022.
I know, that's what you
Exactly.
said.
What
to
grandma
me.
does
Yes.
not care.
I
The
said, but I
grandkids
don't
do
think I'm
not
a
care.
good role model.
No. In fact, you could do a turnaround and say, I am a good role model. Because we're in 2022 now, and you're showing people that life, you're reinventing your life, and you're really living the next chapter really well.
Right.
Yes.
Oh,
You know.
thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's so exciting to be able to not be alone and have
Yes.
somebody who you really love and care about in your life at this point in life, because that means even more than I think it does at 30. You being alone and lonely is a terrible thing for most people after 60.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you really appreciate being together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you come from a
yes.
place where
Oh,
you're used to being,
yeah.
you walk in and you're alone.
Right.
Exactly.
And now you have this wonderful
Yeah, and we don't
relationship.
have kids, and all my friends get dogs, but I.
And Gloria asked me, she said, well, would it be all right to put in the book that
When a
maybe
dog's
your
on-
dog is not enough?
Oh, that's good. Maybe your dog is not enough. I love that. I
I didn't
love
want to
that.
insult you.
I love that. Well, we've covered a lot of these because there are scammers that take advantage, and we've talked about that.
Yes.
Right?
Being safe is really important, and that's one of the reasons that motivated us to write the book, because we feel like that we've lived it now. We've gone through it, and we've also counseled a lot of people who are going through that process. So we know what it takes to feel safe and to do it fearlessly, and that's the reason why we put that in the book as a title.
We've also got the dating opens one up to scammers, and we've talked about that.
Yes,
Yep, yep.
yes. Yeah, because there are. Online is not as safe as it was, say, 10 or 15 years ago, but it can still be safe. So what we're trying to do is help people understand how to be a good consumer. If you're going to be on online dating, you've got to be a good consumer. So what are the rules? What are the things? Even though she broke every rule, how do you do this safely?
I mean, how do you? Are there a couple tips?
Well, one of the things is you do want to check out a person if you are starting to
Okay.
text them to make sure they are who they are. Because there are people who pretend to be other than who they are, or who they put out
Even
there.
my son, who's in his 20s, said this.
Oh, yes.
He said what he
Oh,
will
that's
do is,
true.
if he's never seen anyone, he will have them go to his apartment and he'll look at his little peek hole. And if they don't look like they said they are, if they're not that person, he won't answer his door.
Well, exactly.
And I was
exactly.
like, what? He goes, Mom, it's a real thing.
It's all about safety and how
Yeah.
can you do this safely. So, I mean, you can check out people on Google. There's also other investigative
Yeah, there are places
that
where you can pay
use online.
$19 and they'll tell you
they'll
almost
check
everything.
out on public record
Yeah.
that the person is.
You can
Now,
really do that.
We both had a website, so that is
Yeah.
really helpful because she sent me her website, I sent her mine, so that you know that there's some validity about that the
And you
person
both have
is who they're
licenses, and I
saying.
checked yours out, and it was valid.
Exactly. Yes. Really, I have
Dr.
license.
Frank Powers, psychologist. Is he licensed?
That's right. That's right. But not everybody has a website. But
Right.
there are ways that you can make sure that you are talking to someone that is who they say they are.
Yeah.
And online, you really need to do that. You need to be a good consumer. And that's one of the things that we really want to do is help people feel really safe when they go. And
Yeah,
that's-
absolutely. So I want to talk a little, one thing we didn't talk about yet is fears, myths and fears money.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Is a big one for families and kids,
Yes,
particularly in this
exactly.
age group. I mean, this is going to be their inheritance quote.
That's right.
Yes.
You know,
That's right.
and so people want to know, you know, and I have to say, be cautious if you're my age that you don't let kids run your life.
Well,
And
your
you also
money.
want to feel free to talk about money.
Yeah.
You need to
Yes.
talk about money. And when you're in your 20s and 30s, you feel like, well, it's not romantic. You know, it's not romantic to talk about.
And you don't have any
In
money
your
anyway when
60,
you're 20s.
It's crucial.
well, this is interesting because
70 or 80.
Yes.
my
that's true.
mother-in-law was widowed in her late 70s, and she fell in love with another man. I mean, and he was widowed.
And she met him at class reunion, right?
I think no, they went. I can't remember where they met, but his kids were worried that she was a gold digger.
Exactly.
They did not
Exactly.
want them to get married
Exactly.
because my mother-in-law didn't financially have anything really. She came with
Right.
very little, and
Yeah.
he had a lot more. And that they really tried to pull them apart, and
Sure,
they didn't like it. They didn't like that they were together.
Well, you know, there's some realistic factors about that, and you do end up having to take that into consideration. And there's also the whole issue of what kind of political and religious, differences do you have, and that you need to make sure that you feel comfortable with that.
Does that come up on the web? Like when you post your profile on the dating app, do you say, this is my political leaning and this is my religion?
It does
Yes, it
talk
asks.
about that.
Oh, okay.
And also
it doesn't ask-
smokers versus non-smokers, people who use alcohol excessively versus people who...
Would someone admit that?
But they don't.
But one of the things they ask about is whether you're a social drinker or
Yeah.
whether you're whatever.
Okay.
And so you can certainly then ask the person, okay, and then really, in a sense, be very careful that you're not getting yourself into a position where you're with someone who is addicted
Yeah.
to either alcohol. And in my case, I ran into a woman who I was interested in, but found out that she was a workaholic. And I certainly didn't want to have or try to have a relationship with someone who was already married to their work.
Yes, that's a really good point.
Yeah. So there's a lot of these issues that we do take up in the book that you want to be aware of so that you can, again, do fearless dating.
Well, and you're looking for something different in your 20s and 30s than you are in your 60s,
Certainly
70s,
are,
and 80s.
certainly
Yeah,
are,
much,
sure.
much different. And, you know, there are just a lot of different issues. I mean, sexuality is a big issue that we
Yes,
cover in the book
right.
that we don't have a chance to cover here. But, you know, what you consider a close relationship, what the other person considers, what your past history is.
And health issues are important, much more important in their 60s than they are in your 30s.
Yeah.
And you really want to make sure that the person is going to be healthy and that you're not going to become a caretaker for someone far earlier than you would have anticipated. So you do have to check out their medicine cabinet.
Yeah. one of the strategies is to go take your camera and take a picture of their master bathroom medicine cabinet. But that's a little bit further down the road. But
But you do have some serious questions that come up when you're 60 that don't come up when you're 30.
And I would think the health things are harder to navigate as we age and get into our 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
when you're
people
30,
say,
Well, when you're 30 and you meet someone, you have a lot of time to work out differences in your relationship. When you meet someone at 60, you want to find someone that's much more compatible to you, that has the same likes and dislikes, so you don't have to work out these differences because you don't have the time that you do when you're 30.
Yeah.
And in a way, the time's kind of a nice factor because the reality is you don't have time to get tired of each other either, depending on where you are.
Because it's so exciting to get back into a dating and getting to know someone and falling in love with them is such a wonderful experience.
But even if you don't find the one like we did, it's fun. I mean, when you talk to people about it, you've got a point of conversation besides what your cat's doing or, you know, what your dog's up to.
How your dog's doing.
So it can be fun. So we hope that people will get inspired and want to get involved in fearless dating.
I was going to say, where do people find your book, and give us the name again?
Okay, it is called Open to Love, Fearless Dating After 60. And you can go to Open to Hope, our website.com, and you can find more information on it there.
Good. And when will it be out? Do we know yet? I know you're in the process of...
You can find us.
It should be out this fall.
Yeah,
Good.
it should be out in September, but you can also still go to the website now and take a look at what we're up to and get involved with us on the website.
I love it. Well, thank you.
Well, it was lovely to talk with you about this. It's been fun.
Thank you, Frank and Mom. And you are role models that it is possible to find love again at any age.
At any age.
Absolutely. And thanks everybody for watching this show today. And Heidi and I and Frank always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours, and God bless.
The loss of a loved one can leave you feeling depressed, angry, alone, lost. But you don't have to face this journey on your own. Open to Hope is a free community for anyone who has experienced loss. Find support. Find help. Find hope. Give grief a voice at opentohope.com.